Significance of the Blood Moons. My name is Alan Drake, and the website is spiritofwisdommedia.com. On Tuesday night, October 7th, 2014, there was a phenomenon known as a blood moon. This blood moon marked the first day of the Jewish Feast of Tabernacles. But that's not all. Because this blood moon occurred just after its closest point to the Earth in its orbit, it appeared to be 5% larger than the previous blood moon, which occurred earlier that year on April 15th, 2014, during the Feast of Passover. But that's not all. This was only the second in a series of 4 blood moons. The next 2 occurred on April 4th, 2015, also at the time of the Feast of Passover, and the last one appeared on September 28th, 2015, at the time of the Feast of Tabernacles. 4 blood moons in 2 years, and all of them at the time of biblical feasts. That same pattern of blood moons has only occurred 7 times since the death of Christ. Could God be trying to get our attention? Could He be trying to tell us something? Does God really speak through signs in the heavens? Actually, when God listed the purposes for the sun, moon, and stars in Genesis, the first reason given for them was that they would be used for signs. Then God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." That's Genesis 1, verse 14. So, the answer is definitely yes. He does use heavenly bodies like the moon as signs to speak to us. One of the most famous signs in the heavens was the Star of Bethlehem that marked the birth of Jesus. King Hezekiah was also given a personal sign from God that he would not die but live an additional 15 years, and that Judah would be delivered from the king of Assyria. As a sign that God would do this, the sun went backwards 10 degrees. You can find that in Isaiah chapter 38. So, God tells us in the Bible that He will speak to us through signs in the heavens. But does the Bible specifically say anything about blood moons? Yes, it does. Blood moons are specifically mentioned 3 times in the Bible, all in relation to the end times. First, in Joel 2:31, which says, "The sun will be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and awesome day of the Lord comes." Peter repeated this on the day of Pentecost in Acts 2, verse 20, saying, "The sun will be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and glorious day of the Lord shall come." The ultimate fulfillment of this is described in Revelation 6, verse 12, which says, "When He, the Lamb, broke open the 6th seal, I looked, and there was a great earthquake, and the sun grew black as sackcloth of hair, the full disk of the moon became like blood." So, we should expect to see blood moons as we get closer to the return of Jesus, and these blood moons will have significant meaning for us. So has this happened before? There have been 7 tetrads of 4 blood moons, all occurring in back-to-back years at the time of Jewish feasts since Christ's death. The one in 2014-2015 was the 8th. All of them have signaled major milestones for Israel and for the church. A tetrad of 4 blood moons, all occurring at the time of Jewish feasts, happened in 1492 and 1493. At that time, Queen Isabella of Spain issued an edict expelling all the Jews from Spain. At the same time, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue and discovered America, which has become a safe haven for millions of Jews since then. In church history, it was at this time, the same time, that the seeds of the Reformation were being sown. Erasmus's humanist movement began to stir moral reform among some church members, and it was only a few years later that Martin Luther, John Calvin, Ulrich Zwingli, and John Knox ignited the historic Reformation movement that changed the church forever and began the process of restoring what the church has lost since the death of the original apostles. The next time that a blood moon tetrad occurred in 2 successive years was in 1949 and 1950, at the time of the First Arab-Israeli War, when Israel won its independence and became a nation for the first time in 2,000 years. This was also the great time of the healing and evangelistic movements in the church. Great ministries arose, like those of William Branham, Billy Graham, A. Allen, Jack Coe, T.L. Osborne, and Oral Roberts. The last time there was a tetrad of 4 blood moons in 2 successive years, all occurring at the time of Jewish feasts, was in 1967 and 68, at the time of Israel's 6-day war, when Jerusalem was recaptured, reunited, and came totally under Israel's authority. In the church, this was also the time of the Jesus People movement and the Catholic Charismatic Renewal. In all, there have been 7 tetrads of blood moons that have occurred at the time of Jewish feasts since the time of Christ. The tetrad of blood moons in 2014-2015 was the 8th. The number 8 is often symbolic of new beginnings. For example, there are 7 days in a week. The 8th day begins a new week. Also, Noah was the 8th person, according to 2 Peter 2, verse 5, who stepped out of the ark into a new beginning for humankind after the worldwide flood. These blood moon tetrads always seem to mark a rise in Jewish persecution and significant changes to the physical boundaries of Israel. These tetrads also seem to signal great moves of God in the church. Something is up, and it's big. After this one, there will be no more blood moon tetrads during this century. This is huge, boys and girls. This is huge. Even if you missed the blood moon event itself as it passed through the sky, be alert and watchful for big changes coming to Israel and to the church during these next few years. Keep in mind what Jesus told us in Luke 21, verses 20 through 28. But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation is near. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let those who are in the midst of her depart, and let not those who are in the country enter her. For these are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe to those who are pregnant, and to those who are nursing babies in those days. For there will be great distress in the land and wrath upon this people. And they will fall by the edge of the sword and be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem will be trampled by Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles are fulfilled. And there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars. And on the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them from fear and the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Now when these things begin to happen, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. My name is Alan Drake, and the website is spiritofwisdommedia.com.